Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Victor and Jack plot Kane's downfall. Adversaries come a betters. Victor Newman and Jack Abbott will compass Kane Ashby's downfall. These adversaries will come a betters on a new vengeance scheme, so let's bandy all the chaos ahead. In the January 9th occasion, Kane made a concession that caught Phyllis Summers off guard. There's a erected in point in Kane's AI program that can force it to turn on its host, so he just has to spark it and watch Newman burn. It looks like Kane will indeed order the software to inflict annihilation on Newman Enterprises, so Victor may lament having that program in his possession soon. It won't take long for Kane and Phyllis to start riding Victor over their palm, so he'll surely be furious. Phyllis and Kane are gearing up for a Newman preemption, but this feud is just getting started. Kane and Phyllis and anticipate to launch an attack like this and get down with it. You can go Victor will covenant to get vengeance, but he may need some help in that department. That's where Jack may come in, since he'll have moping worries of his own when it comes to what Kane and Phyllis will do next. Jack and Victor preliminarily tried forming an alliance against Kane, but it snappily sizzled since they weren't truly committed. It was further about giving the vision of an alliance, since Victor and Jack obviously have trust issues. Still, effects will be different this time around. Grounded on the rearmost spoilers, it sounds like Victor and Jack are authentically going to come a betters, at least temporarily. It's sure to be a challenge, but it'll be worth it if Jack and Victor can get results. Then's what YNR head writer and administrative patron Josh Griffith had to say about the cooperation that's brewing in an interview with television bigwig. Kane's power trip will force Victor and Jack from abhorring each other to have to work together for the lesser good, which will be intriguing to see if they can pull that off without killing each other, Griffith said. Will Jack and Victor's revengeful platoon come Kane's worst agony? Will Phyllis go down right along with Kane's sinking boat or find a sneaky new path? Victor Newman and Jack Abbott do the unbelievable and join forces in a secret, high-stakes plot designed to bring Kane Ashby to his knees, and the shockwaves from this alliance hang to permanently reshape the power structure of the city, because for decades Victor and Jack have defined contest itself: boardroom wars, particular backstabbings, stolen suckers, commercial sabotage, and emotional bloodshed. But now, driven by collective trouble and ruthless pragmatism, they realize that Kane has come commodity far more dangerous than either of them anticipated, a quiet manipulator who smiles in public while pulling strings in the murk, and what terrifies Victor and Jack the most isn't just Kane's ambition, but his tolerance, his capability to bed himself into families, businesses, and commitment without ever appearing overtly hostile, making him nearly insolvable to expose without disastrous collateral damage. And that's exactly why this alliance is born not out of respect or remission, but necessity, as Victor discovers substantiation suggesting Kane has been totally undermining Newman Enterprises through shell companies, makeshift investors, and precisely timed request dislocations, all while Jack uncovers resemblant moves aimed at destabilizing Jabot's force chains and exploration hookups. And when the mystification pieces eventually align, both men come to the same nipping conclusion: Kane is playing a long game designed to weaken both conglomerates contemporaneously, so he can step in as the rescuer, the middleman, the necessary power broker who profits from the remains. And Victor, no way one to tolerate a retired adversary, is the first to reach out, summoning Jack to a covert meeting where decades of abomination poach just beneath the face. But the moment Victor lays out his intelligence, bank transfers, falsified documents, non-public emails routed through coastal accounts, Jack realizes this is no typical Newman mind game, and for the first time in times, he sees the same trouble Victor does. A man who learned from watching their wars and decided to come commodity, indeed more dangerous, by staying unnoticeable, and so the deal is struck with icy clarity: no particular attacks, no pride-driven sabotage, no last, nanosecond backstabbings until Kane is fully annulled, because one wrong move could warn him and spark a retribution that neither Newman nor Abbott is prepared for. And as this secret alliance takes shape, the pressure is nearly unsupportable, with Victor and Jack trading sharp brickbats and thinly veiled cuts indeed as they map, each man induced he's the smarter one, each still planning for the day this temporary armistice inescapably collapses, but for now their focus is singular: destroy Kane's credibility, drain his coffers, and expose his manipulations so completely that he has nowhere left to hide, and the plan itself is a masterclass in ruthless perfection, as Victor targets Kane's fiscal highways by still acquiring stakes in the very companies Kane uses as fronts, cutting off cash inflow while making it look like request volatility, while Jack attacks from another angle, feeding Kane precisely curated information designed to bait him into overreaching, pushing him to make bold moves that will eventually leave fingerprints too egregious to deny. And all the while Kane remains ignorant that the two men he formerly considered predictable adversaries are now working in perfect, intimidating synchronization. But what elevates this plot into true youthful and the restless brilliance is the emotional fallout splashing through Genoa City, because alliances like this no way live in a vacuum, and people close to Victor and Jack begin to smell commodity is out, as Nikki notices Victor's surprisingly subdued hostility toward Jack. Billy grows suspicious of Jack's unforeseen silence whenever Newman Enterprises is mentioned, and indeed Adam, ever the strategist himself, starts to suspect that his father is hiding commodity monumental, while Kane, confident and composed, continues to weave himself deeper into social and professional circles, situating himself as the reasonable volition to the Newman-Abbott chaos, which only energizes Victor's fury and Jack's resoluteness. Because they both know that Kane's topmost armament is perception, and to master him they must turn that armament against him. And as the plot accelerates, the stakes come particular when substantiation shells suggesting Kane has not only targeted businesses, but designedly manipulated connections to weaken his rivals emotionally, continuing old injuries, exploiting family divisions, and subtly impacting opinions that led to disastrous issues. And this disclosure hardens Victor and Jack's resoluteness, transubstantiating their alliance from strategic to nearly moral, as twisted as that sounds, because in their minds Kane has crossed an implied line by weaponizing family, commodity indeed they understand the cost of, and so the wind-up begins, a precisely orchestrated sequence of events designed to collapse Kane's conglomerate in a single ruinous blow, starting with a public business triumph that Kane believes is his crowning achievement, only for Victor and Jack to pull the hairpiece out from under him by revealing the retired power structures and illegal pushes bolstering the deal, driving examinations, shareholder fear, and a media disagreement that paints Kane not as a visionary but a fraud. And when Kane realizes what's passing, the treason cuts deep, because he no way imagined Victor and Jack would ever trust each other long enough to unite, and his shock snappily turns to rage as he confronts them, unleashing times of resentment and allegations. But Victor remains cold and unyielding, Jack sharp and unapologetic, and for one stunning moment, they stand side by side, united in purpose, a visual that sends chills through Genoa City. Yet indeed in Palm, the armistice is fragile, because as Kane's downfall accelerates and his influence crumbles, old battles resurface, with Victor and Jack formerly jockeying for advantage in the fate, each determined to ensure the other doesn't crop stronger from the wreckage. And this is where the story truly shines, because the followership is left wondering whether this alliance will collapse in spectacular fashion, or if the experience of working together will permanently alter the dynamic between these two elephants, indeed if only subtly. And as Kane is left to face the consequences of his ambition, betrayed abetas, legal battles, and the crushing consummation that he undervalued the very men he sought to outthink, the question lingers: was he truly the villain, or simply the coming elaboration in Genoa City's endless cycle of power struggles? And more importantly, can Victor and Jack ever go back to being pure adversaries after participating secrets, strategies, and palms that no bone differently will ever completely understand? Because formerly lines are crossed and alliances formed, nothing is ever the same, and the young and the restless formerly again proves why it remains a master of long-form liar, delivering a plot packed with conspiracy, treason, cerebral warfare, and the intoxicating exhilaration of watching sworn adversaries come abetas, indeed if only long enough to destroy a common foe, leaving observers breathless, equivocal, and hopeless to see what ruinous move comes next. Victor and Jack plot Kane's downfall, adversaries come abetters. The young and the restless only grows further explosive as the shocking alliance between Victor Newman and Jack Abbott deepens, twisting into commodity indeed more dangerous, more psychologically complex, and far more unpredictable than anyone in Genoa City could have imagined. Because while the original phase of Kane Ashby's collapse sends tumblers through the commercial world, the true desolation unfolds on a far more intimate position, where pride, paranoia, and buried abomination collide, and Kane begins to realize that his topmost misapprehension wasn't undervaluing Victor's ruthlessness or Jack's adaptability, but failing to grasp what happens when two nascent bloodsuckers stop fighting each other and concentrate on the same prey. And as examinations consolidate and Kane's precisely polished image begins to fracture, whispers spread across boardrooms, charity festivals, and private clubs that Victor and Jack are ever orchestrating events from behind the curtain, an idea so unbelievable that utmost dismiss it as gossip, yet the substantiation keeps piling up, coincidences too precise to ignore. As deals fall piecemeal in perfect sequence, Abetta's suddenly withdraw support, and Kane's most pious mates begin asking questions he can't convincingly answer, and while Kane intimately projects calm confidence, intimately he's unraveling, replaying every commerce he's had with Victor and Jack, searching for the moment he missed the shift, the reflective sign that his adversaries were no longer acting singly, and this growing paranoia pushes him into reckless opinions, exactly what Victor and Jack anticipated, because they understand Kane's psychology better than he understands theirs, knowing that pressure forces him to reveal his hand, and so they apply it relentlessly, subtly, and with nipping tolerance, while contemporaneously maintaining the facade of hostility toward each other, engaging in public spats and competitive pushes designed to assure Kane that nothing has unnaturally changed, a deception so unfold that it requires Victor and Jack to trust each other in ways neither man ever has ahead, participating intelligence, vulnerabilities, and indeed contingency plans, and this forced closeness creates moments of unanticipated reflection, as Jack is brazened with the unsettling consummation that Victor's mind works much like his own, that beneath the bluster and brutality lies a strategist driven by heritage and fear of impertinence, while Victor, in turn, begrudgingly acknowledges Jack's rigidity and moral lines, still blurred, that separate him from total darkness, and these moments do and soften them, but they complicate everything, making their alliance both stronger and further unstable, because familiarity types not comfort, but occasion, and both men still take notes, filing down perceptivity for the ineluctable day this cooperation ends, yet neither can go to let that day come too soon, because Kane is far from finished, and his despair sparks a counterattack that threatens to burn everyone involved, as he begins oohing picky information designed to crop Newman against Abbott formerly more, planting seeds of mistrustfulness and dubitation, suggesting to Victor that Jack is situating himself to seize Newman means once Kane falls, while intimating to Jack that Victor intends to go jabot to cover his own conglomerate, and for a tense moment, the alliance teeters on the point of collapse, as old instincts flare and trust phrase. But what saves it isn't fidelity, but participated rage, because both Victor and Jack fate Kane's fingerprints each over the manipulation, and rather of turning on each other, they acclimate their strategy, using Kane's leaks as bait, allowing him to believe his plan is working, while intimately tracing the inflow of information back to its source, tensing the mesh indeed further. And as the net closes, contributory damage becomes necessary, with innocent workers caught in the crossfire, families shaken by fiscal query and long-buried secrets dragged into the light, forcing characters like Lily, Devin, Nikki, and Billy to defy uncomfortable trueness about how far Victor, Jack, and Kane are willing to go to win, and this moral fallout becomes a central theme, as Genoa City grapples with the consummation that its most important men are engaged in a shadow war with consequences that extend far beyond profit perimeters, and nowhere is this pressure more apparent than within the Newman and Abbott families themselves, as cracks begin to form under the strain of secretiveness, with Victor's children seeing that commodity monumental is unfolding without them, driving old resentments and power struggles, while Jack's leadership is questioned as Jabot faces scrutiny and query, forcing him to justify opinions he cannot completely explain without exposing the alliance. And these internal pressures push both men to their limits, testing whether their participated ideal is enough to hold them together when everything differently is pulling them piecemeal. And as Kane's legal troubles mount, he makes one last, audacious move, hanging to expose not just Victor and Jack's collaboration, but the darker conduct each has taken over the times, a scorched earth strategy that would destroy reports and patrimonies likewise. Forcing Victor and Jack into an insolvable choice silence, Kane permanently through legal and fiscal obliteration, or threat collective destruction by letting the verity come out. And this dilemma crystallizes the central question of the plot, because while Victor has no way stressed being stressed, Jack has always clung, still imperfectly, to the idea of being admired, and their differing doctrines produce disunion at the worst possible moment, climaxing in a blistering battle where decades of resentment explode, allegations fly, and the alliance nearly implodes under the weight of everything unsaid between them. Yet indeed in that chaos, a strange clarity emerges, as both men realize that Kane's trouble only exists because of their own once surpluses, their long history of warfare that created the terrain in which someone like Kane could thrive, and this tone, mindfulness, doesn't redeem them, but it sharpens their resoluteness, because neither is willing to let Kane rewrite the narrative of their lives. And so they agree to a final, ruthless scheme, one that sacrifices short-term safety for long-term dominance, allowing certain secrets to face, controlled exposures that damage Kane far further than they harm themselves, reframing the story so that Kane is seen not as a whistleblower, but a vengeful opportunist trying to save himself. And the prosecution of this plan is nothing short of ruinous, as sounds, exposés, and public reckonings unfold, stripping Kane of credibility piece by piece, until indeed his steadfast protectors begin to misdoubt him. And when the dust eventually settles, Kane stands isolated, furious, and broken, forced to defy the reality that his intelligence and ambition were no way enough to overcome the brutal rigidity of Victor Newman and Jack Abbott working in tandem, and the fate is anything but triumphant, because while Kane's downfall restores a fragile balance of power, it leaves scars that cannot be ignored. As Victor and Jack crop victorious, but altered, their relationship permanently changed by participated secrets and collective recognition, unfit to return completely to the simplicity of open abomination, yet inversely unable of trust, creating a new, uneasy dynamic that promises unborn conflict, indeed more dangerous than ahead, because now they know each other too well, and Genoa City feels that shift incontinently. As power realigns, alliances are reevaluated, and everyone begins to wonder what happens coming in a world where the unbelievable has formerly happened, where adversaries came abettors and proved that together they're impregnable, and as observers, we're left with the intoxicating query that defines the young and the restless at its stylish, knowing that while Kane's chapter may be closing, the story of Victor and Jack is far from over, and the consequences of their alliance will ripple through Genoa City for times to come, reshaping connections, kindling new wars, and reminding everyone that in this city, power is no way truly destroyed, only transferred, staying for the coming bold player to seize it. Indeed, as the murk grow longer and the lines between idol and villain blur beyond recognition. And just when Genoa City believes the storm has eventually passed, the final echoes of Kane Ashby's downfall begin to reveal an indeed more unsettling verity. This alliance between Victor Newman and Jack Abbott was no way meant to be clean, complete, or closed, because the most dangerous consequence isn't Kane's defeat, but what it awakened in both men, a consummation that together they can bend the entire city to their will, and that knowledge is insolvable to forget. As Victor returns to Newman Enterprises with renewed dominance, his confidence stoned by the evidence that no rival is untouchable, while Jack steps back into Jabot with a colder edge, lower vision about fairness, further amenability to strike first, and though they intimately renew their contest, swapping pointed reflections and competitive pushes, there's now a turnabout of collective mindfulness, a silent acknowledgement that they partake a secret history no bone differently can access, and that changes every battle, every concession, every trouble, because they're no longer just adversaries replying to each other's moves. They're chess masters who have formerly played a game together and learned every strategy, every weakness, every tell, making their unborn battles infinitely more particular and changeable. And as whispers spread that Cain may yet return, hardened by loss and fueled by revenge, the question hanging Genoa city is whether Victor and Jack could ever work together again, but whether the coming time they do, the target will survive at each, or if the city itself will come contributory damage in a war between men who have formerly proven that when they unite, indeed compactly, there are no limits to what they can destroy.